The president is expected to give the State of the Nation address on the 11th of this month, which is this coming Thursday. Be sure to tune in right here on Newsroom Africa Channel 405 as we bring that to you live. Let's talk now about your expectations from the president, and we'll be talking to Sbu Zikode, who's representing Abahlali BaseMjondolo. But before we get into this conversation, let's look at what the president promised last year. The president did say that the first cohort of presidential youth service and 1% of the national budget will go towards youth unemployment. The government will lead a youth employment initiative which will be funded by setting aside 1% of the national budget to deal with the high levels of youth unemployment. He said that this will be done through top slicing from the budget, which requires government to redirect resources to address the national crisis of youth unemployment. The president further promised that funding for 1,000 young entrepreneurs will be taking place in the next 100 days. The National Youth Development Agency, along with the Department of Small Business Development, will provide grant funding as well as business support to 1,000 young entrepreneurs in the next 100 days. But this 1,000 is just the beginning, because this forms part of a bigger, more ambitious program which is aimed at assisting 100,000 young entrepreneurs over a period of 3 years. And the entire program is to help young people access their business skills training. It will help them access funding as well as assist them with market facilitation. The unemployment rate is currently at 30.8%. Joining us now to unpack their expectations is Sbu Zikode, representing Abahlali BaseMjondolo. Good to have you with us this afternoon, Mr. Zikode. When we spoke to you last year, and just before the State of the Nation address, and we asked you what your expectations were as Abahlali BaseMjondolo, your response was that you had no expectations. Has anything changed? Do you have expectations for the budget speech this coming Thursday? The State of the Nation address, rather, this
yes, absolutely. Abahlali expect that the president could talk a very specifics around the question of job, of decent job, creation of decent jobs. This is what we think that it would be appropriate for the president to really give us and give the nation the explanation as to what plan does he have to create decent jobs for everyone, but also the fight against corruption, including the prosecution of those that are fingered in the Zondo Commission. We think that it is high time that the president gives the nation the right direction, because there's so much of money that has been spent on the Zondo Commission, but we do not see anyone being prosecuted. But we also expect the president to talk about poverty and inequalities that continue to rob this country of its opportunity, to grow and make sure that everyone has a place in South Africa. The last expectation, obviously, is the manner in which the rolling of the vaccine would be facilitated in terms of making sure that the communities such as Abahlali and all organized progressive groups are included in the delivery of the COVID-19 vaccine.
What did COVID-19 reveal to you as Abahlali BaseMjondolo as far as how the government is catering for and focusing on informal settlements in the country? What were the biggest learnings that came out of the early days, specifically of COVID-19?
Well, the early days did reveal to South Africans and everyone that the living conditions of the people who are living in the informal settlement is life-threatening, as what the UN suggested, that the living conditions of the shack dwellers are really places to be concerned about. And we've seen some steps taken around that, which we deeply appreciate. However, at this stage, we do not see government engaging meaningfully with Abahlali in as far as the government's response to COVID-19, and of course around the question of the delivery of the vaccination, we do not see government talking to us. We do not see government prioritizing Abahlali. Yet it was revealed that the highest infection, if this would have gone to Sheikh Settlement, it would be a human disaster. So we are still happy that it hasn't really got to a stage that one would have expected. However, we think Sheikh settlements are the areas of great priorities for government to be talking to Abahlali and to be involving Abahlali in this discussion, because we think we are sitting on a time bomb should the virus really navigate its way to the informal settlement. We'll be sitting on what is known as the human disaster.
And what is your ideal as Abahlali BaseMjondolo? What is your ultimate vision? Are you looking at the total eradication of shacks and people given, brick and mortar houses, or are you looking at formalized, quote unquote, informal settlements, for lack of a better phrase?
Well, Abahlali has prioritized that the government should be releasing land. The question of land is still the priority for Abahlali. We have understood in the first instance that the government would not be able to provide house for everyone in the country. So the best possible solution that we've been talking about and lobbying government to do has been to release land. We want to know about the so-called land expropriation and the land expropriation bill that we have contributed last year. We want to know how far the government has gone to listen to the submissions of the South Africans, including Abahlali. So we are hoping that the government can speedily release land, but also provide service sites in order for those who are able to build decent housing for themselves so that they can do so without actually creating dependency. Obviously, no government anywhere in the world could provide a house for each and every one in this country. So those who are able and those who will be capable of building their own houses should be provided with land so that they can do so.
Are you hoping that the President will cover this in his State of the Nation address on Thursday, the issue of land and the availability of land?
It would be one of the biggest mistakes that the president could do if he fails to report to South Africans and give directions, as far as the land expropriation bill is concerned, because we've been asked to send submissions and of course around whether Section 25 of the Constitution should be amended. South Africans have spoken, Abahlali have spoken. We want to know what the nation, has instructed the government to do. So it would be a biggest mistake for not saying what is it that South Africans have said and what is it going to do about the feelings of many South Africans who remain in deep poverty because of the same failure to fairly redistribute land to those from whom the land was stolen.
Before I let you go, just one final word on what you believe the President should have been focusing on that thus far he hasn't been focusing on, that deals specifically with the informal settlement community, the blind spots, in other words.
Well, the President really ignores the fact that most of the national regulations that they have put out do not really speak to the shack dwellers. In other words, the compliance that we've been asked to does not fit with the conditions under which people are living. For instance, people are still without water and sanitation. There's hardly any road access. There's no electricity. Yet we are asked to keep washing our hands, as a way of promoting hygiene, which we agree with that. But where do we wash our hands when we actually have no water? Even those water tanks that have been delivered today remains empty because there hasn't been a strategy to continue filling up these water tanks, while many communities remain without water and sanitation. But also the idea of keeping social distance. How does one keep social distance in an already congested environment like shack settlements? which is why for us, the long solution would be for government to provide land so that the so-called social distance that the country speaks about can actually make sense to those who are living in a congested environment in shared settlements.
Well, we thank you very much for your time and your insight, as well as the expectations that you have of the President's State of the Nation address come Thursday. That's Mr. Sbu Zikode there from Abahlali BaseMjondolo on their expectations on the upcoming State of the Nation address.